Welcome to the Roaring Twenties, one of my favorite decades in American history. From flappers to bootleggers, tin lizzies to speakeasies, anarchists and Bolsheviks, the 20s has so much to offer. This Powtoon will take a quick look at the culture of the 20s and some of the people, inventions, and events that made it such a roaring decade. First, let's look how living conditions changed for Americans in the 1920s, and nothing changed how people lived more than electricity. New home construction in suburban areas with indoor electricity allowed a growing number of Americans to purchase products to make everyday life easier. Toasters, refrigerators, freezers, sewing machines, washers, and dryers all changed how we lived in our homes. But the one thing that changed not only how we lived, but where we lived, was Henry Ford's Model T. The Tin Lizzie allowed a growing middle class to move to the suburban areas, provided a sense of freedom and independence that Americans had never felt before. Ford's assembly line, which increased production of the car and made it affordable to the masses, was quickly adopted by every other manufacturing company and made the mass production of goods happen like never before. The radio united the nation. For the first time, news and information could be delivered instantly over huge distances, keeping the nation informed as well as entertained. Radio stations like NBC and CBS, yes, they eventually became TV stations, broadcast programs of music to the nation, and advertisers, who paid the bills, were able to reach millions of Americans in order to sell their goods, giving birth to the dreaded commercial. The radio also broadcast the decade's hottest music, jazz. Jazz was the music of the decade, and its fast-paced energy and passion came to signify the attitudes of that decade. Older Americans despised jazz and believed that the music would corrupt the morals of the youth and lead to the downfall of the American society. Rooted in the blues and ragtime, jazz, a truly unique American sound, was formed and sculpted by predominantly black musicians. Many people resisted jazz because of its association with Black America, but its popularity among young white Americans was hard to ignore, and it quickly became mainstream, blasted on every radio station and record player in the country. Jazz was not without its haters. Professor Henry Van Dyke of Princeton University says, "Jazz is an unmitigated cacophony, a combination of disagreeable sounds and complicated discords, a willful ugliness, and a deliberate vulgarity." Thomas Edison, whose invention of the phonograph had made jazz's sudden, rapid spread possible, claimed that he played jazz records backwards because they sound better that way. The New American reported that moral disaster is coming to hundreds of young American girls through the pathological, nerve-irritating, sex-exciting music of jazz orchestras. If only those guys could hear today's music, I wonder what they'd say. The Great Migration brought millions of African Americans north in search of industrial jobs during World War I. Northern cities swelled with Black Americans in search of industrial work, better opportunities, a chance to escape segregation, racism and violence in the South, and to have a better future for their children. This migration had many repercussions, including the Harlem Renaissance, a birth of Black culture centered in the New York neighborhood of Harlem. African American culture had never had an opportunity to be its own, and during the 20s, Black artists and writers gathered in Harlem and outpoured a new culture expressed in songs, poems, paintings, and plays. But what was probably the biggest change in America during the 20s was the changes made by young women known as flappers. The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote and a new sense of freedom and empowerment. Young women embraced this freedom by making drastic changes to what a woman was supposed to be. They chopped their hair into bob cuts, put on makeup, got jobs, smoked and drank in public. When riding in cars with boys, they wore short, straight dresses that created a boyish figure and showed way too much skin. These flappers broke down all the traditional stereotypes of what a woman should look and act like, and embraced the freedom that millions of young women in America desperately wanted.